You're scrolling through your phone, trying to move on. You've deleted his number, archived the chat, and muted his stories. You're doing the work. You're healing. Then a message pops up. It's from your best friend. No words, just a screenshot. At first it doesn't register. It's him and her. A couple selfie in front of his bedroom mirror. But your eyes go straight to the background. There it is. That old photo strip from the carnival. The one with the cotton candy, the oversized teddy bear he won for you, and the kiss in the last frame. Clear as day, pinned to the edge of his mirror like it's still 2021. Why would he keep that? Sarah thought she was over Mark. She really did. She even started dating someone new, cautiously optimistic for the first time in months. But when she saw that photo strip in his new Instagram story, her heart dropped. She hadn't looked at that photo in a year. She'd forgotten the exact shade of red her scarf was. But he hadn't. She showed it to her friend, who shrugged. Maybe he just forgot to take it down. But Sarah knew better. Mark was meticulous. He didn't even leave socks on the floor. That photo wasn't there by accident. And suddenly her healing felt undone. Not because she wanted him back, but because now she had questions. What does it mean? Why would someone who clearly moved on enough to date someone new still have relics of an old relationship visible in his most personal space? It's not just a picture. It's a choice. When we end relationships, we don't just separate physically. We also start the slow, painful process of detaching emotionally. That usually means purging the memories, deleting photos, unfollowing, boxing up old birthday cards. But some people don't. Some keep pieces. And sometimes, they leave those pieces where they can be seen. In Sarah's case, she couldn't let it go. She started noticing little signs. Mutual friends casually mentioning that Mark still had her old mug in his kitchen. That the Spotify playlist she made him, still active, still named Us. At first, she thought it was kind of flattering. Maybe he still cared. Maybe she mattered more than she realized. But then came the confusion, the overthinking, the sleepless nights spent scrolling through his old posts, trying to decode the timeline. When did he meet his new girlfriend? Was it before or after that sad emoji caption in December? Suddenly she was back in it. The worst part? She didn't even want to be. But that photo kept echoing in her mind, like a loose thread. She couldn't stop tugging. Was he just lazy, or was he sending a message? Because here's the truth. When someone keeps old photos, and you can see them, they're not just keeping them for themselves. Whether they admit it or not, they're keeping them for you too. Sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's deliberate, but it always means something, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like opening a book you thought you'd already finished, only to realize there's a secret final chapter, written in invisible ink. You start replaying everything. That weird message he sent 2 months ago, the way his new girlfriend low-key blocked you even though you've never spoken, the time he watched all your stories in a row, then disappeared again. Maybe the photo wasn't for nostalgia. Maybe it was bait. The most painful part? Realizing that even though he's with someone new, he still hasn't let go of the idea of you. Not necessarily the relationship, not necessarily the love, but the access. He's keeping a version of you alive, in memories, in photos, in old playlists, just in case. And the version he's keeping? It's not even real. It's filtered through time, through loneliness, through ego. It's not the fights, the tears, the reasons you broke up. It's the fantasy of what you once were. Sarah tried to tell herself it didn't matter, that she was over it, that she shouldn't care what was on someone else's wall. But the truth is, closure doesn't come when someone else lets go. It comes when you do. Seeing that photo didn't mean Mark was still in love, but it did mean he hadn't let go of the story, and that story still involved her. That's why it stung, because sometimes, the hardest part of healing isn't forgetting the past. It's realizing the other person might still be living in it, in just enough ways to pull you back in. You didn't ask for that reminder. But now that it's here, you have to decide. What does it really mean to move on? Not just for him, but for you. Because when someone keeps your pictures in their new life, you're left with one burning question. What story are they still trying to tell? And are you still letting them write it? They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but sometimes it's worth even more, because it says what someone won't say out loud. When he keeps your photos long after you've broken up, especially while dating someone new, it's not always about love. It's not even always about you. Sometimes it's about fear. Fear of letting go. Fear of being alone. Fear that what he has now won't measure up to what he had before. Experts call it emotional cushioning, a quiet, almost invisible way people protect themselves from fully committing. And the most common form of cushioning? Keeping mementos of past relationships. Old photos, saved messages, playlists titled after your inside jokes. Maybe even your toothbrush still shoved in the back of a drawer. Jake thought he was just being sentimental. He had an entire folder on his phone titled Good Times, and nearly half of it was pictures of his ex, Melissa. Birthday dinners, vacation selfies, blurry snaps from nights out. They were all still there. He wasn't looking at them every day, but he hadn't deleted them either. When his friends asked why, he shrugged it off. It's just memories, he said. No big deal, but it was a big deal. Because Jake had a new girlfriend, Sophie. And what Sophie didn't know was that every time they fought, every time she made him feel insecure or misunderstood, Jake would find himself scrolling through that folder. Not to reminisce about Melissa, but to remember a time when things felt simpler, easier, safer. It was never really about Melissa. It was about the version of himself he liked better in that old relationship. And that's what people don't talk about enough. Keeping those photos isn't always a romantic gesture. It's a psychological safety net. It's a way to say, if this new thing fails, I haven't lost everything. I still have proof I was once loved. I still have somewhere, someone to emotionally retreat to, even if it's just in my mind. It's not cheating. It's not lying. But it is emotional hedging. A backup plan. A plan B that doesn't need to be spoken out loud to exist. It's like refusing to close one door fully before you know the next one is wide open. And here's the problem. That fear-based behavior doesn't just affect him. It affects you too. Because the moment you see that your photos are still in his life, you start questioning everything. Does he miss me? Is he unhappy with her? Is there still a chance? And that uncertainty is exactly what keeps you stuck. But the truth might be far less romantic than you think. When someone holds on to old relationship photos while starting a new relationship, it's rarely about longing for a reunion. More often, it's about clinging to a version of themselves they haven't learned to recreate. That photo of you two smiling on a beach? Maybe it reminds him of the only time he felt confident, or carefree, or in control. That photo of you laughing in the car? Maybe it brings him back to a time before he felt the pressure to be someone else. He's not always mourning you. He's mourning who he was when he was with you. That's what makes letting go so complicated. It's not just about losing a person. It's about losing a piece of identity. And keeping photos becomes a way to hold on to that piece, even if the relationship is long gone. Think about it. You wouldn't keep a keychain from a vacation you hated. You wouldn't keep a souvenir from a job that made you miserable. You keep things that remind you of who you used to be, especially when you're unsure of who you are now. So when he keeps your photos, it's not always a sign that he wants you back. Sometimes, it's a sign that he doesn't know how to move forward without parts of his past. He may be using those pictures as emotional scaffolding, something to hold him up while he's still figuring himself out, something to keep him steady when his new relationship isn't quite what he hoped it would be. But here's the hard truth. When someone uses old love as a crutch, they never give new love a real chance, because part of them is always looking over their shoulder, and no relationship can thrive in the shadow of another. Sophie eventually found out about the photos, not because Jake showed her, but because she stumbled across them on his iPad while looking for a playlist. Her stomach dropped. The folder wasn't even hidden. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just asked him one question. Why are these still here? And Jake had no good answer. Because even he didn't fully understand it. He thought he had moved on. He thought he was happy. But the truth was, he hadn't let go. Not completely. He was still carrying the emotional weight of his last Relationship like luggage he refused to unpack. And Sophie felt it, even before she saw the photos. That's the thing. People feel when they're being compared to ghosts. Even if the photos are never shown. Even if the ex is never mentioned. We all know what it feels like to be someone's second choice. Even if we're the only one standing there. So if you've seen your photos in his world, even as he builds a new one, ask yourself this. Is he really holding on to you? Or is he just afraid to let go of what you represented? Because keeping memories isn't inherently bad. It's human. But when those memories start to interfere with new connections, they're no longer just nostalgic. They're destructive. A relationship can't thrive when someone is still emotionally invested in a version of the past they refuse to bury. And whether he realizes it or not, keeping your photos might be less about you and more about his fear of facing the future alone. It's not your job to fix that. It's not your job to compete with memories. It's your job to protect your peace. And remember this, if he needs a backup plan, then he was never your plan A. It starts with a like, an old photo, one you forgot was even public, a blurry shot from 2 summers ago, your smile tilted slightly toward him. It had no caption, just a memory, a forgotten one, until he liked it, and suddenly it's not forgotten anymore. Because now, he's reminding you, and not just you, everyone, including the person he's dating now. You wonder, was it a mistake? It wasn't. When someone keeps your old photos, and lets you see that they've kept them, it's not always passive. Sometimes it's a message, a strategic one. Let's call it what it is, a power play. And it's more common than you think. Mia thought she was done with her ex. They hadn't spoken in over 6 months. She had moved cities, changed her number, blocked him on everything except Instagram, where he never posted anyway. She felt safe, until one night, her phone buzzed with a DM from his new girlfriend. "Hey, just wondering why your photo is still up on his page?" Mia was confused. She hadn't posted about him in ages. Then she looked. Her ex had gone back through his old posts, liked one of their couple photos from 2 years ago, and even commented a fire emoji on another. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't random. And it wasn't for her. It was for the new girl, the one he was trying to keep slightly insecure, slightly jealous, slightly off balance. Because for some people, old memories aren't sacred. They're tools. Strategic pieces in a game they're still playing, even if you've quit. Keeping your photos visible? That's not sentiment. That's signal. It says, I had someone before you. I'm desirable. People still think about me. Or worse, she still thinks about me. And that's the part that hurts the most. Because sometimes, you're not even participating, but you're still being used. Your photo becomes a weapon, a silent one. A ghost dropped into a new relationship to stir tension without a word. And here's the kicker. Sometimes he doesn't even want either of you fully. He just wants control. Control over how he's seen. Control over how you feel. Control over the narrative. Because if he can get you to wonder, or feel shaken, or reach out, he's still relevant. That's all it takes. A lingering image. A liked photo. A shared memory with perfect timing. It's not about the photo itself. It's about the reaction. That's what power plays are built on. And if he can't have your love anymore, he'll settle for your confusion, your curiosity, your attention. Because to someone who needs validation to feel in control, attention is currency. And old photos are the easiest way to cash in. It's low effort, high impact. He doesn't need to text you. He doesn't need to show up. All he needs is for you to see something and start doubting what you know. And if he's really playing games, he'll make sure his new girlfriend sees it too. He'll keep a photo of you in the background of a story. He'll repost a memory and say, that was a good day, with no mention of who was in the memory. He'll hold on to old playlists, captions, or inside jokes just enough for someone to notice. Why? Because he wants to stay in control of the story, even after it's over. Some people can't handle being forgotten, so they find ways to haunt without ever knocking on the door. They leave digital breadcrumbs knowing you'll follow, and you will because you're human. You'll go back and stare at the photo, wondering if it was intentional. You'll reread that caption. You'll try to remember what you were wearing that day, what you said, how he looked at you. And while you're doing all that, he wins. Not because he got you back, but because he got you to care. And that's what power really is. The ability to affect someone without ever touching them. So what do? You stop playing. You recognize the move, and then you walk off the board. Because here's what game players hate the most: being ignored. They crave a reaction. They need to feel like they still matter, that they're unforgettable, that you still think about them at 2 a.m. the way they used to think about you. When you don't give that to them, it unravels everything. Power only works when it's reciprocated, when you feel the pull and give in to it. But if you break the pattern, you break the game. Mia didn't message her ex after his girlfriend reached out. She didn't explain. She didn't defend herself. She deleted the old photo, blocked him, made her page private. Then she wrote one final sentence to the new girl. "Whatever he's doing, it's not about me. Good luck." And that was it. No drama, no fuel, just clarity. Because once you see the game for what it is, you realize how small it actually is. A person who truly loves you doesn't manipulate your memory to hurt someone else. A person who's healed doesn't need to be seen holding on to the past. And someone who's genuinely moved on doesn't play tug of war with pictures they claim don't matter. So if your photo is still showing up in his world, ask yourself, is this love or is it leverage? Because there's a difference between someone who cherishes your memory and someone who uses it to keep feeling powerful. And if it's the latter, there's only one move left. Take yourself off the board. It's tempting to think the story is simple. If he keeps your photos, he must still love you. If he talks about you, he must miss you. If he scrolls through your old posts, he's clearly not over it. But the truth is messier and a lot less romantic. 'Cause sometimes he's not holding on to you. He's holding on to what you represented. It's not the person he misses. It's the feeling. The version of himself that existed when he was with you. The emotional space he could never recreate. And that's where unresolved feelings hide. Not in love, but in longing for something that had nothing to do with the relationship itself. David didn't realize he still had all of Lisa's pictures until his new girlfriend asked, "Who's this in your camera roll?" He looked down and saw Lisa's face, smiling back from a beach trip over 2 years ago. He hadn't meant to keep the photo, it just stayed. But he didn't delete it either. Not because he wanted Lisa back. He didn't. They had grown apart, fought too much, wanted different things, but she was the only person who had ever truly believed in him. Back when he was broke and barely scraping by, she told him he had talent. Back when he thought he'd never make it out of his hometown, she made vision boards with him. She knew what his dreams were before he could even say them out loud. And now, his new girlfriend was sweet, supportive in a quiet way. But she didn't see him the way Lisa once did. That's what he missed. Not Lisa. The feeling of being understood. And the photos? They weren't keepsakes of her. They were artifacts of him at a different time. It's easy to confuse that kind of nostalgia for love. Easy to believe he still wants you just because your memory lingers in his world. But people aren't always mourning the relationship. Sometimes they're mourning their younger self. The more hopeful version. The less guarded version. The version that hadn't been broken yet. And that's what makes it hard to let go. Because in a way, letting go of those photos is like admitting they'll never be that version of themselves again. That the chapter is really over. That no matter how far they go, they can't go back. That's why he keeps the playlist. The inside joke. The coffee order you always made for him. Not because he needs you, but because he misses the feeling that only existed when you were around. And this is important. Unresolved feelings are not the same as ongoing love. Unresolved feelings are what you get when you never properly processed the past. When you skip the grief. When you moved on in a hurry without ever really sitting in the pain. They show up in strange ways. Keeping photos but never looking at them. Saying I'm over it, but bringing your name up in casual conversations. Checking your social media from a burner account. Just to see how you're doing. These aren't signs of love. They're signs of unfinished business. It's about the version of the breakup story they never got to tell. Maybe they felt misunderstood. Maybe they weren't ready to lose you. Maybe they felt like a failure in that relationship. and that failure still clings to their identity. So they keep the photos, not to win you back, but to win the narrative in their own mind. As long as you're in the background, quiet, still, beautiful, and static, they can pretend the story didn't really end. That maybe, somewhere in a parallel world, you're still theirs, still believing in them, still loving them the way they needed to be loved. But here's the problem with living in a memory. It robs you of the present. It creates a split identity. One part trying to move forward, the other still caught in an emotional time capsule. And if you're on the receiving end of that, it's confusing. You see the signs, old photos, weird texts, unexpected interactions, and think, maybe there's still something there. But the question isn't, is he over me? The real question is, does it matter anymore? Because even if he's not over you, what is he really missing? The actual connection? Or the way that connection made him feel about himself? Because here's a secret most people won't tell you. You can be deeply embedded in someone's story without ever being part of their future. That's what Lisa realized. When David reached out months later, long after their last real conversation, he didn't say, "I miss you." He said, "I've been thinking about those days." Those days. The mornings when she brought him coffee. The nights they planned big dreams. The version of life where anything still felt possible. Lisa asked him plainly, "Do you miss me? Or do you miss who you were when you were with me?" And he didn't have an answer. Because sometimes we don't miss the person. We miss the clarity, the comfort, the hope they once gave us. And sometimes they miss that about us too. But that doesn't mean they're ready to show up now. It just means they're stuck, looking backward instead of forward, holding on to echoes instead of evolving. So if your ex still has your pictures, still checks your posts, still drags your memory into his new life, it doesn't always mean he wants you back. Sometimes it just means he never found that same feeling again. He never got the closure he needed. He never became the version of himself he thought he'd grow into with you by his side. That's not your burden to carry. You were real. You gave love. You tried. But if he's still holding on, long after the story ended, it's because he hasn't figured out how to be whole without the version of you that made him feel like someone. And here's what you need to know. You are not responsible for someone else's emotional stalling. You are not required to reappear just because someone can't let go of the past. And no matter how many pictures he keeps, you don't belong in a frame. You belong in a future that loves you forward. You saw the photo. You felt the sting. You ran through every possible reason in your head. Why did he keep it? Why now? Why you? The answers have twisted and looped through your mind, like a song you can't turn off. Some days you convince yourself it means something. Other days, you try to pretend you don't care. But deep down, you know something's been unsettled. And now that you understand the truth, the psychology, the power play, the unresolved feelings, it's time to ask the most important question. What are you going to do about it? Not what he wants, not what you wish it meant, not what would make him think twice or make his new girlfriend feel insecure. No. What do you need to finally move forward? Because here's the truth. Your healing doesn't depend on his intentions. It depends on your decision. The moment Rachel found out her ex still had their pictures, something in her stomach sank. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was this strange, heavy mix of confusion and insult. Like someone had kept a piece of her in storage. Without asking. She told herself it was harmless. That he probably forgot. That it didn't mean anything. But it did, because the next time she tried to fully open up to someone new, she hesitated. Some part of her still felt owned, still seen, still stuck. She realized that even though she hadn't talked to him in months, he still had emotional real estate in her mind, rent-free. And that's when she knew. Healing wasn't going to happen passively. It wasn't something time would just do for her. It was a decision she had to make, on purpose. So one night, alone in her room, she did the thing she never thought she'd do. She deleted every trace of him. The texts, the photos, the playlist, the email folder she never opened but always kept just in case. She didn't announce it. Didn't text him. Didn't even tell her friends right away. She just did it, quietly, for herself. It felt like ripping out a root that had been tangled under the surface. Painful but freeing. A kind of silence she hadn't felt in years. A month later, he texted her out of nowhere. "Why did you erase us?" She stared at the message for a long time. And then calmly she replied, "Because you're not my future." That was it. No dramatics. No guilt, just truth. And for the first time, she meant it. This is what real closure looks like. Not a final conversation. Not a big apology. Not even an acknowledgement. It's a decision. A choice to no longer give someone emotional power over you just because they once had a front row seat to your heart. So here's what you can do. If you're still caught in the tug of an old picture, an old message, or a feeling that refuses to go away, 1. Acknowledge what it stirred up, without judgment. That photo made you feel something. Confused, nostalgic, angry, hurt, curious. It's all valid. Don't shame yourself for reacting. You're human. Just don't stay in the reaction. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, what does this moment really say about me, not about him? 2. Remember, the photo is not a promise. It's not a clue. It's not a map back to love. It's a snapshot of a version of life that no longer exists. Let it be what it is, an image. Don't give it a voice it doesn't have. 3. Decide what you need closure to look like. Is it cutting off contact completely? Is it deleting photos, blocking accounts, finally unfollowing? Is it writing the letter you'll never send, just so the words don't live in your chest anymore? Whatever it is, make it a deliberate move. Not an emotional reaction. Not a moment of weakness, but a firm, quiet move toward your own peace. 4. Release the fantasy that they'll come back changed. Even if they do come back. Even if they say they've changed. Even if they finally say everything you once wished they would. It will never erase the fact that they let you become a memory, while still holding onto pieces of you like keepsakes. You deserve someone who doesn't just revisit your photo. You deserve someone who chooses you now. 5. Reclaim your story. You are not just someone's ex. You are not someone's old picture. You are not a plot device in someone else's emotional journey. You are whole, evolving, alive, and you get to decide what chapters come next. Letting go of someone doesn't mean you never loved them. It means you're choosing to love yourself more now. It means the story that once defined you is no longer your headline. It's just a chapter. One you can read without flinching. One you don't have to revisit unless you want to. There is no perfect way to move on. No grand final scene. Just quiet choices. Small actions. Moments when you realize your peace is more important than their attention. So if he still has your photos, let him. Let him keep a version of you that no longer exists. Because while he's clinging to the past, you'll be doing something much braver. Becoming someone you've never been before. Someone free. Someone unbothered. Someone no longer waiting to be remembered. Because here's the real plot twist. You weren't the one left behind. You were the one who finally let go.